Hey everyone, this is Mike Casu, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. This week, I interviewed a guy named Cameron Herold. Cameron is a professional speaker, author, entrepreneur, leader, father, husband. And in this show, we dive into leadership, entrepreneurship, and ways to become a better version of yourself, become more productive, provide more clarity for your life. And Cameron is one of the most successful people I know. He's built 3 companies to making over $100 million a year. And yet he's so clear about what matters most to him in his life, like his family and friends. And he has ways of making sure that he has the time to devote to those things that matter most to him. So it's such a refreshing perspective. And there's just so many nuggets of wisdom in this one. So hope you enjoy the show. What's up, everyone? This is Mike Casu, and this is the Brute Strength Podcast. Cameron, thank you so much for making some time for me, man.
Hey, Mike. Happy to. I'm looking forward to it.
Like I was telling you before the call, we started and I only interviewed fitness professionals, coaches, gym owners, that kind of thing. But people have really, really been loving hearing from different leaders and entrepreneurs. And you're one of the people that I respect most in the entrepreneur community. And I'm really excited to dive into this with you, man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
So I have some more personal questions to start out with before we get into more business type stuff. What is something that you've stopped doing in the past 2 years that has most contributed to your success? Stopped doing?
I stopped trying to figure it all out on my own. I stopped trying to learn. I stopped trying to think that I had to know the answer, and realized that I just needed to be connected to the people that knew the answers. I no longer needed to, in the school system, we were always told that to be smart, we had to memorize the entire textbook and be able to repeat it. And that built some really bad habits for me that I thought I needed to know all aspects of my company. And now I just realized I just need to know who knows that stuff and plug into them quickly.
And how do you figure out what is kind of like in your lane, in your wheelhouse, and what is not? How do you specifically go about that?
Sure. I take a look at almost everything that I do over the course of a month, and I categorize all those things in one of 4 ways. Either I for incompetent, C for competent, E for excellent, or U for unique ability. The incompetent is stuff I suck at. Competent is I'm okay at it. The excellent is things I'm really, really good at, but I don't necessarily get energy from. And the unique ability is stuff that I'm really, really good at and I love doing and I get energized while I'm doing it. So the more that I can get stuff off my plate that doesn't give me energy, that I'm not great at, the more I start falling into that zone of just working in my unique ability.
Mm-hmm. It's obvious to me how this works for entrepreneurs and members of a team, right? Where we have the ability to delegate and make sure everyone is in their unique ability. Does this same model work for people with, maybe that is a coach or an employee of someone?
Sure. You think about just how you go through our normal day-to-day lives. Like, do you love cooking your own food, or do you eat mostly at restaurants? Do you love cutting your own hair, or do you suck at that and you get someone to cut your hair? Do you like painting your own, house or your own rooms in your condo, or do you hire a painter? So we often, do you wash your own toilets, or do you hire a cleaner? So we often find parts of our lives that we can outsource. And I think if we can start looking for more of that, either to outsource or to automate or to stop doing, so that we're only doing the stuff that gives us energy, that is where our real fulfillment comes from in life and in business, whether you're a sole entrepreneur or a sole proprietor or an employee or CEO.
Love it. I love the tactical exercise of it. When we're talking about passion, I've heard this idea of passion being cultivated curiosity coming up more and more, or that's just, I've heard it more and more. What are your thoughts on that? Can you create passion?
I don't know if you can create passion. I think when you find the stuff that you love, it starts to come out. I think often people get trapped into a rut where they don't see a better way, or they don't look for a better way. And the reality is, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So I think if employees or people, anyone listening, if they lean out 3 years from now and decide what they want their life to look like, and start describing all aspects of what their life looks like 3 years from now, and start reverse engineering that, they'll give themselves a better path to get excited about. So your learning will be more focused. Your energy will be more focused. The stuff that you wake up in the morning doing will be more focused because you have a path or a direction 3 years out. In the business world, I call it a concept called a vivid vision. And I get entrepreneurs to describe what their company looks like 3 years in the future in such vivid detail that they can figure out then how to make that happen. And I think that's where a lot of the passion comes from. If you're really clear on where you're going, then it's easy to wake up in the morning and be excited about it. You understand why you're working on certain things.
Right. We emailed back and forth a couple of weeks ago, and I had a meeting with our like key team leaders, and we talked about, what each of us wanted out of the company, what our purpose was. And the next day I did the exercise, the vivid vision exercise. Yeah. I haven't felt that like invigorated about our business, and I can't even remember how long. Whether it's for any of you listening, whether it's for your business or for your life in general, I can't recommend this exercise enough. And I think it's free on the interwebs, right?
Yeah, I'll actually send you the chapter from my first book, Double Double, and I also included it in my third book, The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs. I'll send you the chapter from the book that covers the vivid vision concept, and anyone who's listening can download that for free and read it. It'll give them a really good tool to get started with.
So you've coached so many different people. What are your clients, or even people that aren't your clients? What do they say that they've gained by doing this exercise?
What they've really gained is a lot of clarity, and they've gained the ability to have alignment with all of their employees, all of their customers, and all of their suppliers, everyone seeing the direction that they're going in and everyone understanding why we're doing what we're doing. Too often I think what happens is employees working inside of a company, we're not sure why we're working on the projects we are. We don't know what the greater purpose is. We don't see what the point is of this stuff, so we don't get excited about it. And then as the entrepreneur or the CEO, it's hard for us to align everybody because we know where we're going. We can see it all in our head, but we're wondering why they don't have that same intuition. Well, it's because they don't see the same picture that we see. Mm-hmm. If we can really start to get everyone literally on that same page, they'll actually understand the direction we're going in.
Right. I've noticed like sometimes I will get caught in like this just linear thought where I just want to like improve a little bit on certain things. But what this does, and that type of thinking, it just gets boring, right? And this type of thing, it allows you to really use your imagination and really get clear about exactly where you want to go if you could have it your way. And it just creates an enormous amount of excitement. So yeah. I loved it.
I love the analogy of the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland, who said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
Right. Exactly. So you're how old now? You're 45-ish?
Thank you. I'm 51.
51. Okay. Not a day over 45.
There you go.
So you're still in your prime as an entrepreneur. You're an author. You are a husband. You're a father. You have a lot of very, very large responsibilities. What matters to you most, and how do you ensure that you make time for those things that are most important to you?
Well, one of the things that I do is I actually lean out 12 months out, and I start first by putting all of my kids' appointments into my calendar for the next 12 months. We have 4 children. So I look at their spring breaks, their Christmas holidays, their summer breaks, their days off, the PD days that the teachers take off. And I put all those free days in my calendar so I know that my kids are free, so that if I can arrange my schedule around that, I now have days off when they have days off. Then I put all their sports activities in the calendar as far out as we can go. So I have my kids' baseball schedule in my calendar right through to the end of the summer. And I put all of their special events and activities into my calendar. And then I put my stuff with my wife in. So I've got 3 concerts in our calendar right now, and I've got family trips this summer in my calendar. So I put all of those big rocks, the personal time, in my calendar. Mm-hmm. I also never work weekends, and I never work after 5:30 at night. So I schedule my day in the confines of that tighter timeline. But by putting the big, important personal stuff in first, I then figure out how to make everything else fit.
What's the conversation like when someone comes, especially maybe a young person that comes to you and they're just all about the hustle, right? They want to be working constantly. How do you communicate with them the importance of doing this type of scheduling and planning?
Yeah, and I hustle too. I work harder and probably more productive than almost anybody out there, but I do it within the confines of normality. You're never going to get it all done. And the thing that I try to talk to the 25-year-old Gen Y who's like, go, 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 go. I'm like, first off, that you're building very, very bad habits, because as soon as you have a spouse or a partner, you're going to want to change a little bit of that, or they're not going to be with you.
Right.
As soon as you have children, I mean, if you'd like to know your children, you may want to slow down on that, like working constantly. So you don't want to build the bad habits. What you want to do is work on the critical few things versus the important many. And then you secondly really want to understand that you're never going to get it all done. So you can't catch up. The reality is you might have to catch up once a quarter, where you work one late night to catch up for something that's burning or bigger than you thought. But if you plan properly, if you outsource more, if you only commit to the stuff that you know you're going to get done, to the critical things, the business will grow and the momentum will create more momentum. But if you try to get your to-do list done by working late tonight, you're going to have a new list tomorrow anyway. You're always going to set new goals and add more to your list. So you're building really, really bad habits for yourself.
Well, say that little bit again. The critical few versus the important many. I think that's huge.
We've got thousands of stuff that we have to do for our business, or that we'd like to do for our business. But what are the critical few things we need to get done? So as an example, I have a daily accountability partner. And every day I send my daily top 3 goals to a friend of mine, Joe Polish, using an app called Commit to 3. And Joe commits his daily top 3 goals to me. We've done this for well over a year. I also have a daily personal accountability partner that I commit my daily personal top 3 to. He's an Ironman triathlete, and he commits his personal to me. The first person to commit to the other person triggers an email, so it nags me to get going on mine if Joe sets his first. And then throughout the day, those 3 things are always staring me in the face. And the reality is, if I just do 3 big things every day for 220 business days, I've knocked 660 high impact things off my list. That's more than most people who are out there doing the hustle, working really hard, are ever getting done, because they're spending time being busy, and they're busy being busy, and they're cranking through all their email. But if they really sat down and said, did they get 660 impactful things done over the course of the year? Most of them will say no.
That is badass. What is it? Commit to 3. I've heard it a few times, but now I've got to start it. I love that.
It's like a $3 app. It costs you $3 for the year. The beauty of it is it integrates with nothing.
Yes.
It just says, get these 3 things done, and I'm going to nag you all day until you do. And all that other busy work will still be there, or you'll get it done. But at least you're working on the critical few things.
That's great. Recently, I was talking to someone about the fact that as kids, there's all this structure for us to grow and learn, and it's actually mandatory. But when we're done with school, whether it's high school, college, post-grad, et cetera, it's all on us, and there's so much left to learn. And it's just not, imperative. I don't know if imperative is the right word, but we're not forced to continue learning as adults. And so I'm wondering, what educational experiences have you had in your adult life that you think have most contributed to your success? And do you have any advice for people that are eager to learn and grow as adults?
Yeah. So when you decide what your goals are, when you decide what your bucket list is, when you decide what your life goals are, or what your next 3-year vivid vision looks like, when you're very clear on where you're going, you'll realize that then starts to focus your learning, because you want to learn about the stuff that's going to take you towards your goals. Mm-hmm. But if you're somebody who wakes up in the morning, you're like, hey, what's sports on TV today? And what can I watch on reality TV? And well, good luck with the rest of your 50 years. You won't be inspired to learn it all, because you're not driving towards anything. You're letting life kind of take you. So decide what your goals are, decide your direction, create your vision of where you're going, and then apply your learning towards those things. Mm-hmm. So as an example, I coach a client in Geneva, Switzerland. He's about an $800 million company. He built the company from scratch. He's 37 years old. He wakes up in the morning and looks at his top 3 goals for the quarter, and then spends that quarter reading everything he can about those 3 big areas. He reads Harvard Business Review articles about those 3 things. He doesn't just read the next business book. He reads stuff that is focused on what he's trying to learn and what he's trying to build.
Right.
So you just focus your learning. And that's unfortunately what we didn't learn in the school system. We learned all this random stuff that didn't tie to anything, and we just had to be like doing it to get a grade. Now you want to tie your learning to what's important to you.
Right.
The second thing I've done for me with my learning is I've realized that my network is my net worth. So the groups that I'm involved in, whether it's me investing in joining Strategic Coach and being in Dan's 10X program, or being in Joe Polish's Genius Network, or going to Jason Gaynord's Mastermind Talks, or joining GoBundance, the groups that I'm involved in and learn from can really fast track my learning because they're already experts. And I then don't necessarily need to be an A student in everything, but I need to know it exists. So that's something else I focused around my learning is I don't have to be an expert in something. I just have to know enough about it to know who to plug into so that they can do it for me.
Right. That's a perfect segue into kind of the topic of your TED Talk. And on the TED Talk, you said, what's the title of it exactly? Teach your kids to be entrepreneurs?
Yeah, it was supposed to be raising kids as entrepreneurs instead of lawyers, but they edited out the instead of lawyers part.
Yeah. I like that. So in that talk, you said that an entrepreneur is someone who organizes, operates, and assumes the risk for a business venture. What do you think are the biggest myths about entrepreneurs and where do they come from?
Well, a lot of the early myths, and entrepreneurship has changed and evolved. So nowadays, everyone thinks that entrepreneurs get rich. Nowadays, people think entrepreneurs raise a lot of money from venture capitalists. Nowadays, think entrepreneurs, wear sweatshirts to work and everything's all hunky-dory. What they don't realize is it takes a long time to get to the night before you become that overnight success story. That we don't really often work 9 to 5. We often work 5 to 9. Like it takes a long time to build something. Entrepreneurship is hard. There's a lot of government regulations that get in your way. You pay 42% of all of your revenue to taxes. That it's hard, it's confusing, that when you think you've got a great idea, there's 7 other people that are already doing it or will be. People are a pain in the ass. When you hire employees, that's really where a lot of the hard work comes in, is managing and leveraging and aligning people. It's hard, and that we don't have the skills. And we also were brought up in a system where we were told that we had to be the smart one. We had to memorize everything, that the only smart kids were the A students. And in the business world, the smartest entrepreneurs I've met are the dumbest ones in the room. They're the people that are putting their hands up saying, I don't know how to do this, who can help me? And they're the ones finding the cheat sheets and the hacks and finding people to do it for them and collaborating. Almost everything you weren't allowed to do in school is what will make you smart and successful as an entrepreneur.
So in your talk, you talked about finding kids with entrepreneurial traits and cultivating those traits. Does the same work for adults? And if so, can you kind of hash that out? Like, what are those traits and how do we cultivate them?
Sure. So I've noticed that most entrepreneurs, not all, but for the vast majority, a lot of entrepreneurs have 3 major traits that they would actually be diagnosed and often medicated for. The first is attention deficit disorder. Most entrepreneurs are ADD or ADHD. And that's actually a superpower for us because it allows us to see everything around us. We don't get too focused on one area. We see what's happening with our customers, suppliers, the market, the economy. We kind of have a very, very good perspective of everything around us. Anyone who doesn't have that ADD or that disease is so focused on something that they miss everything. They miss the obvious. So for entrepreneurs, ADD is a strength. Second thing is most entrepreneurs are bipolar, or are on the spectrum for bipolar disorder. The mania is why people follow us. They love our excitement and our energy and our passion and enthusiasm, and they relish that. Often when you're manic, you could recite the alphabet and people think it's awesome. The stress and depression from that, though, is because we need to correct that mania. We need to kind of decompress a little bit and slow down. But our waves, our highs and our lows are often magnified because of the stress that we're under, where we have our house on the line, we're not paying ourselves, we've hired some new employee who we've promised the world to, and then we wake up the next day going, God, I hope my business is still in business. Right. We're always talking about the future, but really trying to execute on today, and that's very stressful. And then the third area that a lot of entrepreneurs have as a trait is we're on the spectrum for Tourette's, which you'll see the nervous tics or people thinking out loud. We're often said that we're shooting from the hip or making it up or, ready, fire, or fire, ready, aim. Well, those are classic, again, traits of people who end up being entrepreneurs, and it's a strength for us. We don't overthink things. So when the medical community looks at those 3 things as diseases, and I see them that most entrepreneurs that I've encountered have a lot of those, maybe those aren't diseases after all. Maybe they're traits. Now, the skills that you want to nurture to become an entrepreneur, the skills are things like problem solving, coaching, delegation, time management, sales, anything that you're going to have to do to grow and pitch and align and lead people.
What should someone do? Because like I was telling you before, we have a lot of gym owners and fitness entrepreneurs that listen to the show. What should someone do if they have a business and they don't have any of those skills that you just rattled off?
Well, one is to either decide the areas that you love that you're really good at and start getting more skills around those. Again, in the school system, we were told to go get a tutor for something we were terrible at. And what I would suggest you do is find something you're really good at and go get a coach on that. I'm a really good keynote speaker. I've done paid speaking events now in 26 countries around the world. I'm a really good speaker. So I should have a speaking coach working me to take me to world-class level. And I'm terrible at French, but it doesn't mean I should get a French tutor. Like, I'll just hate French even more. So if you're a gym owner or an employee or a small business owner or a big business owner, work on your strengths, work on your areas of unique ability and get better and better at those instead of trying to work at some sport that you're terrible at or some skill in business you're terrible at. And then outsource everything except genius, or just stop doing it. Just don't include that in your business.
Right. It's the best feeling in the world to feel competent and confident in your abilities in any certain skill. And I think by constantly working on our weaknesses, sure, it feels good to have improved that weakness a little bit, but it feels great to be working towards and just working towards mastery in one thing or a few things.
And you think about, anyone who's listening right now, a lot of fitness buffs on the line, so let's say that you're somebody who really loves, CrossFit. Well, I can assure you're probably not spending a lot of time working on your badminton skills because you probably hate badminton.
Right.
Or if you're like an amazing cyclist, you're probably not working on your golf game. But if you're an amazing golfer, you're probably not working on your cycling. So same thing in the business world. Find the 2 or 3 things that you're amazing at in business. Maybe it's sales, maybe it's marketing, maybe it's leading people, maybe it's vision, maybe it's raising money. And just figure out those few areas that you're really good at and then delegate everything except genius. I'm really, really good at reverse engineering goals and dreams. So what I'm working hardest on now personally is figuring out what needs to get done, quickly putting a project plan in place, and then outsourcing each of the steps of the project.
Love it.
Because I suck at getting stuff done, but I'm really good at figuring out what needs to get done.
Right. I got an email from a guy a while back that heard me talking to one of my guests about entitlement. And he candidly shared with me that he had grown up in a household where he wasn't taught to work hard for what he wanted. And he feels like this sense of entitlement has come with him into his adult life, and he wanted to get rid of it. And so basically my answer was, my answer to him to help him was, basically by having this new awareness that you have this issue, that's going to help the problem. And you want to always continue to be aware of that in everything that you do. Do you have anything else, any other thoughts or advice for people that can relate to that and, how they can get rid of this sense of entitlement?
Yeah, so it's huge point. I was actually just telling a CEO client of mine the other day that the student controls the learning environment. So until the student is ready to learn, they won't learn. So when someone all of a sudden realizes that they're carrying this sense of entitlement with them and they look in the mirror and they don't like that feeling, they will start to work around that really quickly. They'll start to uncouple that. They'll start to get past it. So the first step is awareness. It's awareness of what you're working on, or awareness of your goals, or awareness of your weaknesses, and then you'll be ready to learn. So whoever it was that said that, you're right. They will absolutely start to break through that now because they don't like it in themselves and they know that it's there. So that is step one. The second part that I always say is just suck it up, buttercup. Like, move on, right? Know that it's there and choose differently. Because guess what? Life is not going to just hand it to you. That all of a sudden when you're 25, 27, 29, mommy and daddy ain't going to keep handing it to you anymore. You got to go make it happen.
Right. Okay.
Life is a really cruel teacher.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. A lot of times
it can be.
The hardest lessons are the biggest lessons.
Yeah, exactly.
So Why is it important to think big in business versus using something like SMART goals for everything you do?
Well, I'm not sure that it is necessarily important to think big. I think what it's important to do is think. So years ago, my sister called me up. My sister owned a company in Toronto called the Toronto Sport and Social Club. And she's got 100,000 people playing co-ed intramural sports in the Toronto marketplace. And she called me up and she was super frustrated. And she's like, I don't know how big to grow my business. And I said, why grow? Because you have to. And I'm like, well, what do you want to do? She goes, I want to spend more time with my kids. My kids are like 3, 5, and 7. I want to just make as much money as I'm making now. And I'm like, just hire somebody to run your business for you. And she goes, no, if I hired somebody to run it, it would cost me, $200,000. And I'm like, Christy, you're making so much money. It's obscene. Go hire 3 people to do your job. You'll make just as much money a year from now and you won't have to go to work. So she did. She literally hired 3 people to start doing all aspects of her job. And she pretty much semi-retired for 6 years and her business continued to accelerate and grow. But she decided that what she wanted wasn't necessarily growth, it was time. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people need to sit down and say, what do I really want? Because growing big isn't necessarily the path. It might be growing a brand to an exit. It might be growing your business to build cash flow. It might be building your business so that you can have multiple businesses. It might be building your business so you can have all the free time in the world and, do whatever you want. I'm very particular that what I want is a business that can run, that can give me my time to be with my wife and be with my kids and be with myself and be with my friends. And I'm willing to work real hard for that, but I will not build a company that I have to go to an office for every day because I'll put too many things at risk or compromise them that way.
Right.
So I'm very clear. So building big isn't necessarily it. It's knowing where I'm going and then figuring out how to get there.
Right. And what do you think about the notion of trying to be the best versus the biggest? When we're talking about success, and are the two synonymous?
No, again, I think it's just, what do you want? I didn't want to be the best student in high school. I just wanted to have fun in high school and get some good grades. So I got 62%. And I look back to everybody else who was trying to be the best student. I'm like, how was your high school career? You hated life because you were studying constantly. That sucks. So did anybody ever look at your transcript? So I think, again, it's just being very clear on what we're after. I talked to someone on a plane recently and I was talking about where I wanted to go traveling next. And they're like, yeah, you know what? I really don't want to go anywhere in Asia. I only want to go to Italy. I'm like, why? And they started telling me the story. I'm like, you know what? That's so cool that you're so clear that you only want to go to Italy. Like, other people just end up going on trips at random. And this person is really, really focused on about 7 reasons that were so concrete as to why Italy is where his next 5 to 6 trips are going to be.
Can you name a couple of those? I'm very curious.
Yeah, he was obsessed about cooking. He grew up in a family where his mom used to cook and his neighbors used to cook, and they always had dinner parties, and he really loved food. And he realized that if he could go and do these Italian cooking schools in Tuscany, and then he was like, why does everyone talk about the cooking schools in Tuscany? I'll bet there's cooking schools in every region. And he started looking into them, and he realized he could go down to the south and learn about seafood, and up in the north and learn about meats. And so now he wants to do these cooking schools in all the different regions of Italy. And he loves wine. And he realized that he actually really, really loves wine, but everyone talked about French wine, but he thought if he could tie it in. And then he wants to go drive cars. So he wants to drive a Ferrari on the coast, the Amalfi Coast. And,
hell yeah.
Yeah, right? Like, and all of a sudden he likes silks. And then he researched the Medici family and wants to go, understand Machiavelli and see where they grew up in Florence. And I'm like, dude, this is really fucking cool. Like, you've got an entire bucket list that is basically Italy, and other people just go on a trip to Disneyland.
Right.
We have one life. None of us are getting out of this alive. And imagine if we decided what we wanted in our life and we figured out a way to make that happen. How cool would that be versus just waking up and being busy?
Amazing. But if you're Dan Sullivan and you're going to live to 164 years old, then you got a lot of time.
He'll be alive that long.
A lot of times the leader's job, or one of the leader's job, is to set the tone and energy of the team that they're leading. I'm wondering, what do you personally do when you're having a bad day or week or aren't feeling particularly energetic? How do you continue to set that tone? Yeah,
the leader's job, let's say it's the CEO, is to be the chief energizing officer. And your job every day is to find one or two things to raise the energy level of your group, of your team. So sometimes you got to fake it. Sometimes you got to artificially jack it up with coffee or Red Bull. But sometimes you just got to wake up and put a smile on your face, and it's like, suck it up, buttercup. It's your job is to raise the energy and to not take it down a level. And it's really, really hard as an entrepreneur when we're stressed or depressed or frustrated to not show that. But that's one of the reasons why we need to get out of the office. It's one of the reasons why we need to feel good about taking time off and taking breaks and decompressing. No one's going to praise us for all the hard work that we're going to do. No one's also going to care if we take time off. And often we feel the guilt. And I don't know why entrepreneurs feel it, but they feel guilty about taking time off and decompressing. What we should realize is that's allowing us to show up in our best energetic form when we're showing up.
Right. Do you think that and I'll speak from my own experience, the reason that I feel that guilt is because I feel like people are going to think that I'm just being lazy, like people being my staff, right? My team. They're going to think I'm lazy. They're going to think I don't care about what we're doing as much as they do. And all of that kind of noise.
Yeah, the reality is most of them don't really know where we are anyway. So they don't know if you're gone to the golf course, or what they do know is if you're at the office screwing around and wasting time, they notice that. They notice if you're at the office sitting at your desk chatting and being a goof, or if you're micromanaging them or delegating stuff to them that doesn't seem possible or aligned. They often would like us to take some time off so they can get their work done.
Right.
And then if you actually build an environment that truly is work hard, play hard, but results first, if you actually build an environment where you actually want people to take 5 weeks paid vacation because you want them to recharge, and you get every employee day one to take 5 weeks paid vacation, all of a sudden they're pretty kind of okay with it.
Right.
Again, if you're showing up focused and engaged and excited and positive and aligning them and helping remove obstacles for them and coaching them and using situational leadership with them, and you're taking 12 weeks vacation, they don't care, because the other 40 weeks that you're showing up, you're killing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Versus showing up 52 weeks and being half charged, half cocked, and half aligned, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. How do you give feedback to your employees based on their performance, and how important is this?
Yeah. So someone the other day asked me, do you do 360 feedback, or do you do annual reviews of your employees? And I said, no, never. Like, first off, if the government uses a system, you don't want to use it. So government uses annual and quarterly reviews of employees. Don't do it. Here's why. If you have children, how often would you do an annual review with your children? Never, right? So how would you, if your child did something wrong, when would you tell them? Pretty much instantly.
Right.
If your kid did something right, when would you tell them? Like, right away. And how often? All the time. So every time they do something wrong, you correct them and you coach them. And every time you do something right, you praise them and raise their confidence. Do the same thing with employees, so that you're giving them very specific feedback as it happens, ongoing, all the time, and your people will really grow.
Such a great analogy. That's so useful. Thank you.
Life is really simple, right? Like, God and grandmother gave us all the rules, and if we just follow them, life gets pretty simple. We really overcomplicate it. And this is why I have a huge bias against MBAs, is they have a lot of theory, but they don't have a lot of the practical. And my grandmother had no degree whatsoever, but she knew how to run companies. She actually did build and run her own company that was successful. But all she did was treat people well, had a good product, under-promised, over-delivered, like all the basic shit that works.
Right. Did you say God and grandmother?
Yeah, and
is that a Canadian thing?
And I'm not a God. I don't go to church anymore, but I use that phrase that it's kind of, you need to do it in front of God and your grandmother. You need to look at you in the morning and say, am I doing something that's ethical and honest and the right thing? And if I couldn't tell my grandmother about what I'm doing, I probably shouldn't do it.
Right. Great, man. So you're a really fast talker. And that's about all I've got. I've got some fun questions to end it, but this has just been incredible, man. So thank you. So some fun ones. Let's see. The first one, you're on death row. You're getting, an injection tomorrow. What does your last meal look like? Appetizer, main course, side, dessert.
It's first off, it's with my wife and kids. I wouldn't want to be with anybody else except them and have my last meal. I really love French food, like beef bourguignon. I have these purple eggs that I like, that are eggs that are poached in red wine and served with bacon and onions on this fried garlic bread that are ridiculous. Something like that. Some kind of very French bistro-ish food.
Mm-hmm.
And then my final dessert is from Cannes in France, and it's called pain perdu.
Oh yeah,
leftover French baguette that is marinated in a custard overnight and then fried and served with maple syrup, and it's
shit. Shit, it's like a really fancy French toast.
Well, it's not fancy. It's the way that the French made.
Oh, right. It's leftover. Yeah.
It's the leftover baguette from the night before, and they just marinate it in the custard, and they fry it up. So it's like, we look at it as fancy, but they look at it as like it's leftover bread.
Right. All right. Finish these sentences. I was embarrassed when.
I was embarrassed when I was speaking at an event about 9 years ago, and I dropped a lot of F-bombs and swore up, only to find out I was in the Bible Belt in Abbotsford, Canada. There was 450 of God's squad in the audience, and I ripped it like Gary Vee would have been proud.
Right. Wow. I grew up thinking blank, but now I know that blank.
I grew up thinking I was stupid, and now I know that I'm not.
What do you want to make absurd in 25 years? Have you heard this question before?
No.
Okay, so a couple examples. One, 25 years ago, it would be commonplace to see a grocery store clerk smoking a cigarette, or it would be commonplace to see someone throwing an entire bag of trash out of the window. Right. Most places that's absurd now, but you get what I'm saying?
My dad used to get all of the kids to pull all their garbage together in the bag, and then he'd throw it up over the roof of the car, across the top of the car as we were driving the highway. Man. And we're like, yeah, awesome, you hit the ditch. Like, that was great. What I want to see is being absurd. I want to see people working more than 9 to 5 is absurd. I want to see people thinking that work. Like, I want people to wake up one day and go, you know what? No, work is not my hobby. Work is what I do to make money. My hobbies are my hobby. I want to see society finally wake up and go, it's absurd that we allow people and believe that work is a hobby.
That is great.
We can enjoy our work, but that's fucking insane to think it's your hobby.
That is great. You have anything else you want to leave these listeners with?
No, this was a really great question. Super fun.
Awesome, man. Where can people, let's see, your books are Double Double, Miracle Morning, and Meetings Suck. What else do you want these guys, where else can they find more about you?
So my main website is CameronHerold.com. It's HEROLD.com. And what I'm really passionate about on the work side right now that I'm building is the COO Alliance, which is the only network of its kind in the world for second in commands to go and learn from each other.
Love it, man. Again, this has been phenomenal. So much tactical as well as conceptual wisdom that you've dropped on us, man. Appreciate it.
Michael, thank you. It's been great getting to know you and your wife, Dee, and appreciate your friendship. And thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Likewise. Hey guys, if you have a question that you want answered related to health and fitness, mindset, business, etc., please don't hesitate to call in. I absolutely love being able to connect with you guys and answer your questions, or having friends of mine that are experts help me answer your questions. So if you're interested, call into the hotline at 801-449-0503. That's 801-449-0503.